We've just gotten lazy and we've forgotten that sales is about providing a solution to a problem and addressing a client challenge. And if we're just taking orders, we're not helping them understand how what you're doing can really make an impact on what they're trying to accomplish. It's not about manipulation or coercion or tricking. It's about listening and understanding and then creating solutions that identify and help.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Scale Smart, Grow Fast podcast. Now, everyone sells, whether they admit it or not. In this episode, Beth McClary-Wolford, Fractional Sales Leader and Sales Team Strategist, breaks down why sales has become a misunderstood word and how to reframe it as a competitive advantage. With 30 plus years of experience building high-performing teams and revamping sales processes, Beth's going to share how to transform hesitant teams into confident sellers through assessment, coaching, and real-world connection. Beth, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
It's a real pleasure to be here, and it's a beautiful, sunshiny, and hot day.
Nice, very nice. Well, Beth, maybe you can give a little background about your story. What brought you to doing what you are doing today, helping people with sales?
So I've spent most of my career working for Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, and it's great, and I got great experience and a lot of wonderful training. But the problem is that most businesses in the United States and in Chattanooga are small to medium-sized businesses, and they are the ones that need the most help. And that is where I realized I could make the most impact. And so 3.5 years ago, I started Superpower Strategies to bring my experience and all the wonderful things that I've learned in my 30 plus years. Thank you for not using the exact number. And to that marketplace. And it's so significant because moving that sales needle for those small to medium sized businesses is a significant impact, and it impacts the economy, and it does what I call give us hope for the future.
Yeah, that's powerful. You're helping your neighbors and the community really improve their businesses by bringing their service
Mhm.
to the people that need it. And, it's a win-win-win situation. I love that. Now, you often say that everyone sells, but many don't want to admit it. Why do you think that sales still has such a negative stigma, and how do you help people reframe that?
Well, one reason why sales is a bad word is that the level of sales professionalism has been on a decline.
Hmm.
We've become a very transactional society. As salespeople, we want it to be transactional. That's stimulated by digital marketing and it has its place and I love it. And I would not give away, all of my experiences and the campaigns that we have. But in that transactional marketplace, a salesperson's impact, we've just gotten lazy and we've forgotten that it's our sales is about providing a solution to a problem and addressing a client challenge. And if we're just taking orders, we're not helping them understand how what you're doing can really make an impact on what they're trying to accomplish. I always say sales, I wish that we could change the definition because the definition is helping people do what they need and what they want and addressing challenges and providing solutions. It's not about manipulation or coercion or tricking. It's about listening and understanding and then creating solutions that identify and help. As I've been in the marketplace, one of the things that I've realized is that bar, I call it, that sales bar of expectations of salespeople is really, really low. And if I can, for Chattanooga, help raise that bar just a little bit, it's certainly going to be, it'll be significant. That's my goal. I want people, when they meet someone and they're a salesperson and they enjoy the experience and they realize that they're better off today than they were before interacting with that company or that salesperson, then I want them to think they must have worked with Beth because the bar's here. That makes any sense.
Yeah. So what are some tips that you might share for people that could, start implementing to improve that experience as a salesperson that their clients or potential clients have when they do meet them?
Well, we need to be very conscious of the so what. I always ask people when they go and talk with a potential client, and this even with you, I mean, it's a great example with your business. What is it that you do for them? Why should they? What's in it for them? What's the so what? It's not about what you do, it's what you do does for the person that you're talking to. So in your case with Workergenics, and correct me if I'm wrong, you provide virtual assistants. You help people clone themselves in a lot of ways so that people like me can go out in the world and do what we do best, which is meet and greet and talk with people. And you take away the administrative stuff that has to be done, but it doesn't have to be done by me. So what you do for me would be you would save me time and allow me to invest my energy where it's the most valuable.
Nailed it.
Good. Awesome. Yes. So the keeping it very customer centric because people buy on emotion. They don't buy on price. They just don't. And even if someone's always think it's funny when a salesperson says, "Oh, well, I lost the deal on price." But when they win the deal, it's always because they have such a great relationship with the client,
Of
and
course.
that's not true. I mean, you didn't lose it on price. There was some level of trust and credibility that you weren't able to create. And perhaps your price was higher, but there was a reason why that your price was higher. What value, what does that extra money do for the client? And you're just not communicating it. Or you really don't understand what their motivation is for making the decision. And don't spray and pray. You ask a lot of questions. You ask people, what is it you want to accomplish this year? We're halfway through. What is it you want to accomplish this year? And if they say, "Well, I don't know how what you do has anything to do with it." Well, I don't know either, but I need to understand what it is you're doing because if there is a way that what I do helps you, then that's the way to go. And that's my goal is to help you get where you want to be. Take those steps. And what steps are you taking today so that I can see if I can help you in those things. But yeah, it's being very customer centric and trying to walk in their shoes is probably one of the most important things a person can do. And when you start talking about emotions, people get uncomfortable. They're going, wait, I got to worry about you. But you do. You really have to. Some people still smoke and mirrors because you can't ever hold on to it. It's there. It's a service, but you can't hold on to it. It doesn't matter. It does something for that client and it can change everything about what they're doing. And then knowing your numbers and understanding how many calls it takes to get an appointment. It can be sort of depressing, but sometimes if we can identify it, then when things get better, we can also identify it and celebrate it and know that our efforts and our knowledge and our preparation have helped us along. So, and what is the value of a lead? A lot of people don't understand that because a lead that you get today, even if you don't close the deal, what are you doing to stay in front of that person so that you make sure that your values continue to be communicated and they understand what a difference you can make so that when things change, they come directly to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point about that follow-up. Do you have any like guidelines or kind of rules of thumb to help sales teams and leaders kind of, calculate that investment they should make in that follow-up or what that kind of follow-up strategy might look like if they had a lead and, maybe they had a discovery call or something and they didn't close? How much effort needs to be put in and what's appropriate to not push them away, but still be very clearly adding value?
Well, it's education. So it comes down to continuous touching. When I say touching, to get somebody's attention, you've got to touch them at least 18 times. And and honestly, if you read any of Jeb Blunt's stuff, he always talks about it. He has categories and it can go up as high as 50 and
Wow.
100 touches. The more we're inundated with stuff, I mean, we're overstimulated. Let's be honest. We got emails and texts and everything coming in. It increases that number.
Hmm.
So in the beginning of a client relationship or somebody's a suspect, I always say it takes 18 touches. Everybody says, and then usually the eyes get really wide and they go, you mean I got to pick up the phone 18 times? So I'm going, no, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that we got to figure out what is that customer journey? How are we going to help them find you? And how are we going to help them be warmer to you? And that, can come down to a business card. People go, well, why are we buying business cards? I don't know, because I got a great big stack of them that sit on my desk that I look at all the time and I see all the time. And that logo that's on there is so important because one day you're going to be out and about at some function or you're going to get introduced to somebody and they're going to say, hey, I know that company. They're not going to know why, but it's because they've seen your logo around. So on a business card, on social media, people say, well, I don't have many likes. People aren't liking and commenting and they're not following me. It doesn't matter. You're still there. They're still seeing it. Everywhere you can put your logo, the better off you are. As your people or as you as an entrepreneur are reaching out, you become more and more familiar. I'm going to try to say this, but it's one of those words that tongue ties me. It's about the law of familiarity. I almost did it. I think I did it.
Close.
But yeah, so the more being persistent and being consistent in social media, but having a good solid digital presence that you're providing some value, some education. We all know what we do, don't we, Harley? We know what we do, but other people don't know what we do. And we can't assume that they do. And so you just share those things, little tidbits, little tips and tricks and interesting stats. And all of a sudden, when somebody picks up the phone and tries to schedule an appointment to come and visit and learn about somebody and their business and what they do, they're a little more open to it because they think they need to know this person or should I know this person? Obviously you've got me on my soapbox, Harley, so forgive me, but one of my favorite things to do is to call somebody and say, hey, this is Beth McClary-Wolford with Superpower Strategies. And there's this long pause and the people go, they're trying to figure out if they're supposed to know me or not. Cool. That means I've done my job. And I got them to pause long enough to where in that first few seconds, maybe I can get them to sit down with me and visit. So it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. And that's all that's really my strategy. The more people we can get out in front of, the more people we can meet, the more people we can shake their hands, the more people we can share a story with, the better off we are. And everyone has a compelling story. Everybody has a reason and a dream that they started their company. Sometimes people can't remember. And sometimes we need to remember. Sometimes that's all it takes is me sitting down and go, why did you do this? And they go, I can't remember. I go, well, we better start working on that so that we can figure that out. And because that's what gives you momentum and excitement.
Love it. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, looking at, common challenges that you see when you work with clients. As you're assessing a company's sales structure or processes, what are some of the first signs that something's broken or just plain missing?
In the assessment process, one of the things that I do is meet with anybody who interfaces with clients. I say that because some people don't even have salespeople. They just have people that interface with clients. That's fine. That works. And I ask the same 8 questions of everybody. And the number one thing that happens is that people do not understand the value that they bring to the marketplace and they can't communicate it. I ask what's different. What makes you different? Who's your competitor and what makes you different? And everybody struggles without question. And that's sort of sad. But I thought that was isolated to Chattanooga, but I was reading a study just the other day that this is a repetitive problem. This is the problem that a founder or an owner of a company might know what makes them different, but they don't communicate that to anyone. And no one understands it. It should be from the beginning to the end. Everybody should understand what makes you different and what are those core values. What is it that you do that makes it makes you so different? And how is that driving every decision you make as a company? And some people say, well, if I do that, well, other people do that too. And I go, well, they're not talking about it, so you can claim it as your
There you go. If you can explain it and know that everyone is challenged with that same problem, but you can just solve that problem of communication and you win.
Exactly. Exactly. There's also the problem of after COVID, a lot of salespeople quit working and were able to hide. I know that sounds horrible and I don't want to, but it really comes down to in the assessment, you can really tell who's working and who's not working. And it happens. We all have those days and we all have those months. Sometimes we have years. We're burnout or we're tired or we're trying to find our way. But the problem is not admitting it and thinking that there's some magic out there that's going to make it go away. When I get into that, that's when I get a little frustrated because I mean they've got great opportunity. It's just they're not acting on it and not following the process. Everybody wants to take shortcuts, right? But in sales, there's no such thing at all. It's hard work. And, I always, if a salesperson calls you and asks you to meet with you and is creative enough to get you on the phone and to ask you, what's 15 minutes of your time to sit down with that person and have a conversation? Nothing. I mean, I know we're all busy, but the reality is if in that 15 minutes they can bring some kind of value, why not? The problem is people don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
People love to buy things. They don't want to be sold. But the sad thing is that if you do my process, you're not being sold. I'm just learning about you and figuring out what to do to help. Who doesn't want to help?
Every day, your top performers are buried under emails, scheduling, and reporting. Work that doesn't move the needle. The result? Frustration, burnout, and worst of all, lost revenue. That's why we created the Executive's Guide to Scaling High Performers, a simple, battle-tested framework to eliminate busy work and unlock your team's full potential. Inside, you'll get the exact steps top executives use to retain A players, boost productivity, and free up their team for high-impact work. Stop losing revenue. Go to workergenics.com/growthhub or check the episode notes to download the Executive's Guide to Scaling High Performers now. Absolutely. I love that mindset. I mean, there's so many times, just me personally, like when I've been trying to solve a problem, whether just personally or in business, and I'm looking at a company and thinking, hey, they might be able to help me. Like they don't have these sales processes. It's actually difficult to speak to someone who can articulate how they help you and what that process looks like in many cases. So that's also a challenge too. One thing we always, want to focus on this show is, helping people decide when it's time to like step back and start delegating. Is there a point at which it makes sense for, the founder or executive leadership team to step back from frontline sales? And, what does that look like?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And the number one skill that is needed by a founder, a business owner, an entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, the number one skill that they need to succeed is sales. And there's a Forbes article. It's a great article about it. It's the one thing people don't have. They want to make apple pies. They make great apple pies. Family tells them how great their apple pies is. And then they start a bakery to make apple pies because everybody said. And then all of a sudden, they're making apple pies and nobody's coming and they can't figure out why. And then they have to hire all these people to make apple pies. And it just gets bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden, your dream of making apple pies is not making apple pies at all. And so you're wearing multiple hats, and some of them you love and some of them you don't love. And the number one piece of a company that gets pushed to the wayside is the sales department, is the salespeople. They're handed a stack of cards and they say, go sell something. And then people get upset because they don't know they're not selling anything. And it's because they don't have an infrastructure in place where they have a process, two, that they have the means and the technology to make that process work, and three, they're coached to use the process, and four, they're held accountable to do it. As we grow up, I always find it's funny, we lose that accountability or that expectation. As children, we knew what was right and wrong. We knew what our parents expected. They were very verbal about that. Teams are no different than that. Here's what we expect. Here's why we expect it. Our goal is for you to be successful. To be successful, use the process. Use the process, you'll make money. It all works out. It works in your favor. That's how you get, these wonderful, let's call them works of art, where people are great sales teams that are just chugging along. And it's because they understand that they have a process and they follow it without fail and they don't make shortcuts. And, they're always prospecting for new potential clients. It's not marketing's responsibility to provide them with leads. It's their responsibility to sell and identify who are good suspects for their product and share that story. This is all I've ever done. All I've ever done is sales. And I've always said that I'm proud to be a sales professional. And the reason I'm proud of it is that I have customer relationships that people I could still call on today because I made a difference. And that's what it's all about. People say that what motivates salespeople is money, and it's not. That's the reward for a job well done.
Mm-hmm.
What motivates a salesperson is that connection and that satisfaction of helping someone do something they needed to do somehow or some way. And that's cool. That's what it's really cool.
That's the real reward for them.
Yeah.
Now, one thing we also talk about on this show is processes. And you've mentioned this many times here in this discussion. You've helped people, implement and revamp their sales processes. What's one process most companies either overlook or underestimate?
I call it lead nurturing, but it's more of taking that extra step. So, for example, or do your 18 touches, you reach somebody. You get them to schedule an appointment with you, which is great. You go out and you do discovery. You learn about them. You visit with them. You understand what their challenges are, what they're trying to accomplish, what you sort of figure out there's something that you can do to help. And then you come back and you say, okay, I'd love to pull together a proposal for you. Instead of just you set the date and you come back to the office and you work on that proposal, sit down and send a follow up to the client or the prospect that says, it was such great to meet with you today. And here's what I learned from you. Here's what you shared with me. And I can't wait to come back and see you on X day at X time where I'm going to use that information to build a solution for you. If anything comes up or anything changes between now and then, let me know. That one step raises the bar already because this is, I heard you and I'm going to see what I can do. And likewise, use that information in the proposal that you do. When we talked, you shared X, Y, and Z with me. That's still true. Does that still apply today? And they'll go, yeah, it sure does. Anything else I need to add? And sometimes there is. Yeah, here, boom, 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 boom. Great. Awesome. That should fit in well with what I'm suggesting today. But bring it back. That's why you're there. And don't pretend that people remember why you're there because they don't.
Yeah.
We all have it. We think people just remember. Yes, that particular potential client is really important to you, but you're one of hundreds of people they talk to. So remind them why they are giving you their time and spending energy with you. And it's because you're there to help them and figure out a way to help them. And sometimes people say, Beth, that's going to take an awful lot of creativity to figure out how my widget is going to help them with that challenge. And I said, well, if you've got your right client, if you've got your ideal customer profile, I promise you, we can figure out a way that your widget will help them do what they need to do.
Yeah.
And there's a return on that investment, and there's something that we can always back into that. Always.
Absolutely. Well, that's really powerful advice. I mean, if someone's thinking about, the effort it takes to figure out how it can help their ideal client versus having to have that same conversation 100 more times with people who are not the ideal client or aren't going to buy, it's kind of a no-brainer when you think about it that way.
Exactly. And you never know. You might not be able to help one particular prospect because you're not going to win them all, but they might know somebody that you can help.
Well, Beth, for people who are listening today who want stronger and more confident sales teams, what's one simple but powerful move they can make this week?
Define your value. What is it? What is it that makes you different? Who are you? What is it you do? Why do people come to you? What makes you different? And what makes you different is it's what makes you wildly successful in the marketplace. And so if you can't figure out what that is, what I would suggest you do is you call your best customers and ask them. Some people say, well, Beth, I'm not the premier provider of XYZ. Well, you never will be if you don't start saying it and acting that way. So, what does that look like? And when I say, why do people come to you? It's those emotional reasons because they're overwhelmed by, because they're frustrated with, because they're looking for a partner that will. You can fill in the blanks with emotional entries into what it is, why people do it. And saving money isn't one of those at all.
Well, Beth, if people want to continue this conversation with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, they can go to my website and there's a wonderful little button that says schedule a consultation. That would be the easiest. So that would be at superpowerstrategies.com. They can reach me by email at beth@superpowerstrategies.com. And they can call me on my phone number, and I know I should have it memorized, but our cell phone, we can now just press buttons
Yeah,
all the time, right?
absolutely.
It's 423-551-3574. That's my office number.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to have all of that detail in the show notes for people watching online. If you got value from this episode, do one quick thing. Hit like and subscribe so you don't miss future strategies to help you scale smarter. And maybe you know a business owner or a colleague who could benefit from this incredible information Beth shared today. Share the episode with them. It could be exactly what they need right now. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, leave us a quick rating. It helps us reach more leaders like you. Thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you all on the next one.